G'day everyone, my name is Tom Craig and you're listening to my podcast, The Help Side, where we speak to some of the most recognisable names in world hockey and get an insight into who they are, what they're about, and what makes them tick. Now, if you like what you hear, feel free to follow our socials at The Help Side on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And be sure to like and subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. We'd absolutely love that. This week, I'm chatting to former Hockeyroos Anna Flanagan. Anna was in her final year of high school when she was first picked in the Australian squad and made her debut soon after as a bright-eyed 18-year-old against Korea the following year. In the years that followed, Anna made a name for herself as a prodigious flicker and an athletic defender who, with a trademark yellow ribbon in her hair, quickly became a fan favourite. By the time she played the last of her 171 games for the Hockeyroos, she was only 24 and had won 2 Commonwealth Games gold medals, 1 World Cup silver, had been to an Olympics, and in 2012 was awarded the FIH Young Player of the Year. While her on-pitch record speaks for itself, Anna was also a front-runner off the pitch and was peerless in her ability to leverage her image for the benefit of exposing the sport she loves to a wider audience. As the first hockey athlete to be sponsored by global giants Red Bull and Nike, Anna's story is quite unlike anything we've heard so far. In her typically open manner, Anna reveals her journey with the Hockeyroos was far from smooth sailing and takes us through the highs and lows of elite sport, and uniquely to Anna, the fame and pressure that can come with it. She speaks candidly about her struggles with mental health and reveals what's next for Anna Flanagan. And once you hear it, I'm sure you'll agree it's a pretty good fit. Please enjoy part A of the help side of Anna Flanagan.
Flanagan takes it on, and that's good enough. They found a way past the valiant Mangisa this time. It's Anna Flanagan.
Easton brings in, it's Flanagan, it's a goal, and Australia take the lead. Anna Flanagan's first goal at the World Cup. Flanagan, low, deflected, goal Australia! 2-1 to the Hockeyroos.
Alright, episode 14 I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but sitting here with Anna Flanagan in her, I guess you'd call it a dining room, open space living area.
Studio.
Table of 2 on her day off from work. Anna, thanks for chatting.
No, thanks for coming to chat to me.
Day off today.
Yeah, I haven't done anything sort of like this, especially for hockey, for a really long time. So I was like, I'm going to treat myself to a day off work.
Just to prepare.
Yeah. I thought it was a legitimate reason. Like, I'm giving back to the community.
Absolutely.
So
Well, fair
I treat
enough.
myself.
What are you taking a day off from?
I'm working as marketing coordinator at the moment for it's skincare, gut health, and hospitality furniture. And we're also now doing it's called Heartland Horse Farm. So there's 4 different things, and I'm doing the branding marketing for all of those, and we distribute like nationally into New Zealand.
Yeah, okay.
So
this is one company.
This is one company, and
Horses, furniture, skincare.
Yeah, so it's really
works.
random, but it's so interesting. So I've got a team of 5 other girls, and we make everything look pretty, basically.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And how'd you fall into that?
Well, I was really in and out after hockey. You know, I came to Sydney when I was out of the Aussie program, and I got an opportunity to work at Fox Sports. When I moved to Sydney, I was in a rut. Like, I'd been dropped from the Aussie team and I didn't know what to do. And my manager at the time was just like, look, I think I can get you a job at Fox Sports. And doing journalism, that was always my dream, being a Fox Sports presenter. I think like half of, sports people think that's pretty cool. And so I moved to Sydney. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anywhere to live. Just packed up, had my suitcases. I was 25, no job. I'd moved back in with my parents. I was just like, what's going on in my life? And I got the job the next day. So I worked in Fox Sports for 2 years. I got to do some presenting. Did you play the World League finals in India?
No, I didn't, but I was watching it, so I would have seen more.
Yeah,
of you
yeah. So I got
to
to do some traveling with it, and that was really cool. But the whole landscape of sports journalism is just changing. I was in the digital team, so we were safe, but it's just so up and down with journalists being able to keep their jobs. I was working till midnight, then I was training at 5 a.m. Like, it was just full on. And if I stayed in media industry, the hours don't change because we're a 24-hour news station.
Yeah, true.
So I went into just like a normal job in construction, random, doing communications. I didn't know what I was doing. The money was good, but I hated it.
What year was it? Was this last year?
This was last year, and I just was not happy. Got out of that, got into PR. And then, you know, that's again, it's like quite a dog-eat-dog industry. And so I had some time off, and when I, again, started applying, this just sort of just, you know, if you're doing the right things kind of just present themselves. When, I landed in it so randomly. I wasn't even going to go to the interview. And the CEO actually, he was like, what he saw in me wasn't the job that I went for. So it was something to do with social media, and he basically was like, I like how you speak. We started talking about culture, and I was like, this is my jam. Like, we do this so much in sport. Like, and so he was just like, I want you to be the coordinator. And, you know, I came in the next day and I started on Monday, and it's been awesome. Like, I've learned so much. They're so supportive. He had a lot of the same contacts in sport as I do. So, yeah, it's really different, but it means, you know, there's a progression and a way to go, and I get free facials. So
was that this morning? No,
this morning I got my teeth whitened. But some people say I'm vain. I don't know why.
So people talk a lot about the likeness from team sport to business, etc. Is this a job that you found you've been able to apply your team sport learnings most, or have there been the other jobs have been similar?
This one, when I interviewed, it literally, if I hadn't played hockey and had those thousands of hours, that's an exexaggeration, of doing the culture meetings and how
that would be. And
how you treat different personalities, all of that kind of stuff, has helped me. Like, I'm in a role with, I've got 5 different females, completely different personalities, and how to manage each one to get the best result. And that's just sport. So my CEO saw that in me, which I gratefully and it is, I feel like I'm just doing what I was doing, or should have been doing, whatever, either way, in that sporting environment, and how you treat people and how to get the best out of people, but in a business sense. And I think he saw that, like my resume, saw a sports person, you go through so much in your career, and then you come out and you go to hand in your resume, and it's like, I have 0 work experience, but hire me. So it was cool because I was considering I've been working for like 2 years, but not in marketing. So to go into like a marketing manager role, and to hire me, it was purely because of that sporting experience, which is thankfully.
For sure. Definitely looking at the things that you've achieved during your sporting career. We'll get to the actual hockey side of things later, but you finished a degree in journalism, as you said. You studied, you got like your Cert 3 or Cert 4 in fitness, so you're, I guess, a qualified personal trainer.
Yeah.
And you did a post-bachelor diploma in legal studies or something. What is that? And why did you do that?
I've never used it. Journalism, I went in straight after school because I'd already made the Aussie squad at that stage. So all of my friends went and did like gap years and stuff, but that wasn't really an option for me. So I went straight to uni, not knowing what I should do.
Yeah.
I didn't like maths or science, so journalism seemed like the only option. But I wasn't very studious because I was just focused on sport. And yeah, I got through it. I did it full time, and I was the only person studying in the squad who did it full time, and it was frowned upon. Basically, it was because our whole training regime changed with the girls when Frank Murray was the coach. They trained like early and late, and girls worked.
Yeah,
that completely changed when Adam Commons came in.
When did he come in?
He came in at the start of 2011.
Okay, so you'd already been there. You had a year under your belt because you moved in 2010?
No, I had a year and a half in the squad, and I hadn't moved yet.
Oh, okay.
So
right.
I actually so when I was at school, obviously, I stayed. But then I was still in the squad for the next year, and I was playing tournaments, but I wasn't living in Perth. And
Gotcha.
I was young for my year, so I was only 18.
Yep.
I don't know if that was a reason, but I think my parents didn't want me to go at that stage either.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad I'm really glad I didn't, because it
Yeah.
was that first year when I was 19 was really hard.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I studied, and so I finished when I was 20, I think, my first degree, and
That's
then
crazy.
and then I think I must have had I had 6 months off or something. It was Olympic year. I took the 6 months off leading into London. Then I did 6 subjects in 6 months to finish my degree. and I worked at Jet's gym and I was playing hockey full time.
How did you do that?
I don't know. Now I can't even
Did you sleep?
I did. I'm like, I want to take whatever I was taking back then. How did I do that? Because I think I was very stressed. And that year was like my best hockey year. Like I got like the AHL, like a player of the tournament, the junior world player, whatever. And yet I was studying, working, doing all of that. So when they say have balance, that was probably when I was playing those couple of years after that as well. Like my best hockey was because I was doing a lot of other things. Because when I was just doing hockey, I kind of sucked. So
Was it worth the stress? Like you said, you were really stressed having all that on your plate, but your hockey was going well. Your study was obviously going well because you passed all 6 subjects, and I'm not sure, but Jet's gym probably liked you as well. I'm not sure. You're probably a good employee.
I came back from London Olympics and I was cleaning the toilets and I was just like, wow, highs and lows. Yeah, I was just like, okay. Because they weren't paying us after London for like a couple of months.
Yeah, true. Because they push the payment forward, don't they? Yeah.
So
how does
I
that
had
work?
to work. Hey?
Like, how does that work financially? Just explain that. Like, as in, so they.
We got heaps of money before London. I'm not going to say heaps, but we had a sponsorship with Ausdrill.
Yeah.
And they were just, we got our normal pay, and then they were chucking $500 extra in a week. Like,
what?
Yeah, I know.
What happened to that?
It was like for 6 months, and so all of us were just like, "This is awesome."
You're still working at Jet's gym?
No,
that was after.
Then afterwards, it went back to. I don't think we got paid at all. So, and then what did happen to that? I went to Bali. I went to Paris after the fix. So it went pretty quickly, and then so I had to get a job.
When did you do this legal thing?
So then after
and
that...
why did you do that?
I did it because I went to play in Holland. And that was, 2013, 14. And I was able to go over there. I went to a club. It was Tone Steedman was coaching, and he was like the best drag flicking coach. Their club didn't pay. So I went purely for hockey, not for any other reason, and I got paid half the allowance from Hockey Australia.
Right, in 2000 and...
It was 13, 14. Okay. Oh, no, it wasn't. It was 14, 15. Okay. That's one. And so I said, well, I'm now old enough, because I went over, I was like 22, that I could get Centrelink. And that was all I could think of that I could do that was writing. And so I did it, and I've never used it. But I got Centrelinks and survived in Holland. So
did you have, why did you have ambitions to go into law? Or?
I thought maybe.
Yeah.
Initially it was going to be a master's. It was 2 years, and then they changed the course. And,
gotcha.
I had no idea. Even with my degree of journalism, I was just like, I don't really know.
Yeah.
I had Fox Sports in my head, but I knew that was post-hockey kind of thing because it wasn't possible.
Sure.
But yeah, it was more, I was really driven to get, because before that I did my Cert 3 and 4 in fitness. I just wanted to get as much under my belt as I could, really.
Yeah.
And my parents were both teachers, were in athlete career education.
Yeah.
And so I was like very kind of hyper aware that this has a really short lifespan.
Yeah, for sure.
And like this is life
for sure
afterwards.
Yeah.
So I think like I was lucky in that sense, knowing that, I do worry about the young girls going over and not doing anything for a long period of time. Or if I had my time again, I wouldn't have done full time, even though I smashed it out.
That's time and a half, isn't it?
Yeah.
6 months. That's not even full time.
Because there's no rush.
Yeah.
There is no rush.
Yeah.
Like, you just get it done. And, there's people taking 7, 8, 9 years. And I'm like, it's just, there's absolutely no rush while you're playing. And then at least you've got some balance. Whereas I kind of finished it all. And then I was like, now what?
Gotcha. We're going to come back to that year 12 because that was when you're the first I've heard of going to school and playing for Australia at the same time. That'll be a good story. But let's go back to where it started. Canberra. How old?
Started playing hockey.
Well, just childhood. Tell me about childhood. What was it like for you?
Yeah, well, my parents were both players. That's how they met. Both PE teachers. My grandparents played. My dad actually, so he was in the junior Australian team. He was in junior Australian cricket, like super talented. He got hit with a hockey stick in the eye when he was 17, so he's blind in one eye. And that was basically his career over.
Yeah.
So I started Minky when I was about 4, but I would always be watching my parents play, and then my older sister, and I wanted to play with my sister. And so at one stage when I first started playing seniors when I was like 13 in Canberra, or 12, 13, I played with my mum and my sister. My dad coached, so it was just a family. Yeah. But because from a really young age, I did little athletics, and they like for Canberra, I was quite a lot better than the other kids. I was also like a head taller. Like I was just tall.
What would you do? What was your event?
I initially, when I was like, before I had this other big growth spurt, I did sprinting, throwing, jumping. So I was like multi-event.
Gotcha.
So I have the under 9 record for high jump in Australia.
Wow. What is the under 9 record?
130.
130. Jeez.
And then my parents put me into individual high jump training, and I didn't improve for 4 years.
Oh no.
I know. I was like, I hate that sport.
That's amazing.
So I was like athletically already. So I started athletics training. I also started tennis, and I was doing hockey, and I trained more for tennis and athletics because you start a lot younger anyway, and it's it's more competitive. And I got into the Academy of Sport, ACT Academy of Sport, when I was 13 for hockey, and that was kind of that's where that's going. But at the same stage, when I was about 14, I started training every day for tennis to get Australian ranking points, because I was thinking I might go play in the college system.
Cool. In the States?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For tennis. And then I stopped athletics. I think my last nationals was probably under 14s. I did Pacific School Games.
What event?
I did multi-event.
Same. So like decathlon, how does it work at that age? You just do like 4
or 5 events, and they just add up the points.
Gotcha.
Because I was kind of average at everything, but you kind of mashed it together. So, and then, and I didn't really improve in athletics I grew a lot when I was about 14. That kind of stopped that. I turned more into a long distance as I got older. So I got into the Academy of Sport, and that's when the training kicked in. We had a coach called Anthony Thornton, and his massive thing was fitness. So from when he had me from when I was 13 to 17, I started at 8 at the beep test, and by the time he left, I was on sort of over 13. So that's all we did though. We just ran and ran, and now I was thankful.
Like it?
I hated it. Who likes running? I thought it was a shit house. And so it was awful. But then by the time I got to Perth, even when I was at my most unfit, I barely ran under. I'd get like a 12.5 would be like a low, because my base was so high from that. So I was grateful after that, because then, I still, obviously worked really hard to keep it there. But it was that like being really young and just running so much every training. That's probably where it all kind of that started. So yeah.
Gotcha. And then so 17... You got a call from Frank Murray?
Well, it was when I was... So I got 13s, 15s, ACT. I played for ACT. We won nationals.
Really?
I know. It's like... I don't think it's ever happened. Maybe nah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, my dad was coaching. And I remember beating... It was like New South in the final under 15s. And I was like, this is the best day of my life. And... So from then, I'd already been scouted by Trini Powell. And so for the next 18s, under 18s, and I think I was still 14, this stage, I got named player of the tournament. And from that tournament, I got put into the under 21s Australian squad.
At 14?
Yeah, so I would have turned, it was 14, 15.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was so much younger than everyone. Because I remember the first camp was in Canberra, and I was just terrified. We had to, do a video, go through video and talk in front of the group. And I was just shitting my pants. I thought it was the scariest thing. But yeah, so that was, we had, Youth Olympics, World Cup qualifiers, a bunch of other things. So I was still at school during all of that. Junior World Cup, I was in year 12. So that was when, after year 11, that would have been when I was in year 12. So it was all the junior stuff, but it was when I was after AHL, so 2009 after AHL, that's when I got called into the Australian team, just like out of the blue. I was like, what? They named the squad, and it was a really small squad as well. It was 24, but George Nanscown and myself. I guess it was the year after your Olympics. Makes sense, a lot of heaps of people retired. But I didn't play a game for my first 6 months.
Yeah, okay.
I came out of Junior World Cup having a really bad experience. Didn't want to play. Thought that, I had one couple of bad games. I was like, well, there goes my career. Everything's over. Life is ending. I think I started playing basketball for a bit. And then I went back over in the start of the year for a camp, and they had injuries. We were playing Australia A. I played all right, and so I got called in and played my first cap. And from then I played like World Cup qualifiers, didn't play World Cup. Someone got injured in Com Games. And again, I was kind of not loving hockey, and I played under 21s and just had fun. I had so much fun. And I was 18 and I got named player of the tournament, and a week later I got called into Com Games, and I went to Com Games, this 18-year-old, and it was the best.
In 2014?
That was
2010. Whoa. Yeah, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
And drag flicking was a big part of it? Or what do you think?
Then the reason that I got individually recognised when I was younger, because I started drag flicking when I was 14, 15, so I drag flicked at these tournaments and no one else did.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't for the Aussie team, but I did at state hockey, and that would have put me, that was the only reason I think.
Yeah.
Well, other than that would have just set me apart from everyone else.
Yeah.
Because no one else was doing it back then either.
Yeah, okay.
There's a lot more people are trying it now.
Why did you decide to start doing that?
My coach at the time was just like, this is like, if we can get you drag flicking in under 18s, and I think I scored like 8 goals or something, and they were like,
keepers just can't
there's
do it.
no one.
Yeah.
And no one knew what was going on, because no one, even in senior hockey at that stage, no one as females was really flicking, other than they had a couple really good flickers in the world, but we didn't have any in Australia.
Yeah.
So it just started.
Smart. So so you're doing year 12. You're finishing year 12 and playing for Australia at the same time. Is that how it worked?
I started right after I finished year 12.
So
when I finished year 12, they moved me to Perth.
Okay.
Oh no, that's a lie. I totally lied.
You had a few.
I had a year. It was straight after Com Games I moved to Perth.
Okay. So you were selected for the Com Games from living in Canberra. That's pretty brave.
Yeah, it was random. I got the call when I was at home. I was just doing uni full time. And we came off the back of this 21s tournament where I just went to have fun. I was just like, I think for me, trying to be at peak level for the whole year was impossible.
Yeah, okay.
Because of mentally, I'd worked myself up so much, put so much into one tournament, to then back that up. I generally always played shit and was just like, I don't want to play. I wish I had given myself more time off during that process, but it wasn't really an option. I was just I'd get burnt out really easily.
Yeah.
But not everyone's like that. I know everyone's pretty different, but I was just like, I probably needed these breaks here and there to be able to keep going.
Nothing at all.
I mean, active recovery kind of thing, but just either if it's out of the program or just to regather, because if I started just getting tired and going through the motions, then it was just a waste of everyone's time.
Gotcha. So would you put a lot of pressure on yourself while you're at the tournaments to kind of perform?
Yeah, I was so competitive. I wanted to win. It was just, it would be so much. Sometimes I just wanted them to be over because I just wanted to know the result and wanted to win. I remember the World Cup 2014 when we'd only be winning one goal. It'd be 3-2, 1-0, and the whole time we were just I just wanted it to be over because I was like, this is so stressful.
That's incredible.
But it was awesome. It was such a good experience.
Yeah, how was that? I was going to talk about the World Cup later, but we'll talk about it now. How was it?
Well, it was the Com Games then I started playing in Perth. Like I moved over. That was really hard. I broke my finger in Argentina, and then I was out for a couple of months.
So the first year of Perth was really difficult.
Yeah.
Away from family.
I was just doing rehab for a long time.
Yeah.
But I had to put on a lot of muscle. Like I went in super skinny, and it was kind of a blessing in disguise because I put on size, and then that probably allowed me to start doing well. Then I got picked in the Olympic team, but I was in everything leading up to that. So I guess you never know if what's going to happen, but there was probably a little doubt I wouldn't make that. And then it was after London when I can't even remember. That was 2012, and that was like probably the highlight I think of
your career.
Yeah, it was so fun.
Yeah,
it was so cool. And we were ranked like 7th, and we'd missed out on goal difference for finals.
Yeah,
so it was kind of like woo, yay! It wasn't like you ranked 2nd or 3rd or 1st, and become 4th or 3rd, or then it's a bit of a bleh. But I was like the most experienced defender in the team at that stage.
Where?
Basically.
In 2014? Or in 2012?
No, in London.
In
London?
Was
like
you would have been 21.
Yeah, 20.
20.
There's like me, Jodie, Jade Taylor, and Kate Jenner. And so I think I had more caps than them that stage, potentially. And like I was 20.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
We, considering... I think we only scored like 2 goals.
You scored 2. Or maybe you scored 3 for the tournament.
Scored 2.
Or did you score 2?
Yeah, and they're like, highest goal scorer. That's just a reflection of how many goals we didn't score.
Well, the crazy thing is that you guys, it was a 0-0 draw in the last game. We're talking London Olympics now, just in case we could. I
digress.
But 2012, you're into the last game to beat Argentina to make the semis, right? So you guys came 3rd in your pool, and Argentina scraped through and ended up winning the silver medal.
Yeah.
But you guys held them to a 0-0 draw, and if you just scored 1 more goal.
I know. And
what was that game like?
They just parked the bus. Like I think that was one. Our first game we lost to New Zealand 1-0, and that was our tournament basically.
Tough. Tough to come back from it. And they only scored in the first 5 minutes or something.
Yeah. So it's really, it's so crazy. I kind of like block it all out now. I'm like trying to remember. I remember hardly any of it. It's so crazy. Yeah. Like especially the games, I couldn't even really, unless I've seen it, like I watched it on YouTube or something. I can't remember it.
Really? Is that normal for you? Because a lot of people just have this like photographic, just incredible memory of every game they've played in. Like the guy I interviewed last week, Moritz Förster, he could remember every game, every minute from every game.
Oh, that's insane. He's so good. That's probably why. I'm just like, I can't remember where I put my keys 5 minutes ago, so how am I going to remember what happened in 2012?
Sure. So what do you remember about the experience other than that it was a lot of fun?
I think that was the biggest stadium it felt like at the time. I don't know if it was that I'd played in, but just like family, friends, everything was easy. Like we were next door to the Olympic Village. You could go out and do things. It was not completely different to Rio, which was like, it's 3 hours to the field. You can't go here or there. It's dangerous. Or everything was quite, even to get from, as a reserve, getting to the Olympic Village, everything was kind of difficult. Whereas London, it was just so seamless. And yeah, everything just was done so well. Like every little thing had been thought of. And I think, even just we finished 3 days before the guys, and it was just like, they had this thing called Australia House, and it was this, everyone went there. It was like, I remember it was like Lauren Jackson, all these like superstar Australian athletes just partying together. And, there was like me and like even Kate Jenner, I think she's a year older, and like George Nanscow and Em Smith, like we're all 20 being like, this is the coolest thing ever. It was just I think I was just overwhelmed. It was just very surreal. Like I'd been to Com Games in Delhi, but there were terrorist threats there, so there was no one in the stands.
Sure.
Like we had 2 people watching.
Gotcha.
Still unbelievable, but really different.
Yeah.
Whereas this was like this world stage. It was really.
What was the village like at the Com Games?
In Delhi.
Yeah, in Delhi. I've heard a few stories, but what was your experience?
Photos. It was like ours. The closer the the apartments were to the front, like the nicer they were, and the further back they got, the shitter they were. And like I think we were somewhere in the middle, but like there was no like tiles on the bathroom. You open the kitchen door and hit the fan, and there's like just like big holes in the wall. Like everything was just kind of messy. And there'd be people in the rooms just like chipping away at like the concrete on the walls like every day, just doing like the most menial, strange jobs. Like the just workers everywhere. Till the last day, they were just still working on it. Yeah. It was just like, it's like this thing's gonna fall down. Yeah. There was a TV in there but didn't work. It was made it kind of cool because it was just like it just wasn't. They were like building as they went, kind of thing. But yeah, I think when it was towards the end, like one of the last days, and we went to like swap uniforms with people. We walked into one of them, I think it was like Jamaica or something. It was like up the front, and it was like so nice.
Was it?
Yeah, we were like, what the hell? We got so ripped off. That's shit. But it made the experience cool though. Gotcha. I got bruises from the bed though. It was like a concrete.
How can you
slab.
Are you a violent sleeper?
I turn around a lot, but it was like my hips. I'd wake up and they'd be like bruised. I was like, ow.
Seriously? Wow.
Yeah.
That's classic. I heard stories the guys had like a window problem. They were lacking some windows in their apartment. That's not surprising.
Yeah, I don't think we had a window in our room. I was with Nick Harold, I think, and that was her last tournament.
Yeah.
And she's like my first big one, so I was really cool in a room with her. And it was just so random and weird. And like you'd have to sit in this specific spot to get Wi-Fi, and yeah.
Perfect.
It was cool though.
Wi-Fi would have been pretty new then, wouldn't it? I don't know.
think so. I don't know. Yeah, you weren't really on your phones and stuff.
Yeah.
You actually had to talk to people. It's kind of annoying, but...
Yeah, weird.
But I was 18. I didn't talk to anyone. I was just like this awkward kid in the corner.
So, again, jumping back to 2012, at the end of that year, that was when you won World Junior Player of the Year?
Yeah, so that was really unexpected as well. And then, so it was that and the AHL Player of the whatever. And it was just, like, I worked so hard that year. And it was, all these things kind of happened that I just was just like, this is really surreal. You know, you don't really think of those as a player. You think of the team stuff. And
you work so hard, like, on your game, like on just different elements of your game, or your fitness,
I do extra. We'd train, however much a week, 5 days a week, but I'd still do extra fitness.
Yeah.
I'd come down and do drag flicking.
Yeah.
I always tried to do extra.
Yeah. And what was the motivation?
I wanted to be the best in the world.
Okay.
And that was the motivation towards the end of my career that I just did not have whatsoever.
Yeah.
But for those couple of years,
yeah.
I was like, I don't want to just win. Like, there's a gold medal, like that's the number one goal, but I want to be the best doing that, like whatever it was.
Yeah.
As from an early age, I just wanted to be the best.
Always.
And when people, were saying, I'm in the team or whatever, I was like, that's like the start. It's like I wanted to be, one of the best, and I wasn't like, I never was, didn't say it. I was very open about that. Because then if everyone else wanted to be the best around me as well, like, we all wanted to be the best. So, I was quite open about it. But it probably wasn't until then that I really thought I might, that could be a thing. Like, we could win a gold medal. We could, because we actually, that year was when we started doing really well. Like, we came second in World League, leading into the World Cup, where I can't remember what we were ranked. But then we came second to that. And so in 2 years, we'd gone from 7th to 2nd. And there was a chance that we could do really well. But we completely changed how we were training. We were training from like 9 to 12.
Yeah. It's just silly hours.
It was crazy. You couldn't do anything else. And initially, of course, like there was a spike. Like we improved. But it wasn't really sustainable, I don't think.
This was, so change your training hours in
From 2012 to 2014, we changed.
Okay.
It was just like, how are we going to go from 5th to... one.
And it was way more intense.
Yeah, it was just a lot. Like, it would be like, well, ideally, do you want to be training at 5 a.m. After you've just had a whole day of work or da-da-da? And it's like, no, you want to train from 9 to 12 and you want to get enough rest. So you couldn't work. You couldn't do any of that. And considering the pay and everything, that all stayed the same. It just wasn't... It worked for 2014. Like, we went really well. but then after, it just wasn't sustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard to ask for athletes, I think, when you're not getting that much money and putting your life on hold a bit.
Yeah.
And especially, like, you can study, but if you're not studying, you've finished all of that, and the girls who are working or doing nursing or, you know, OP or whatever, it's really hard to maintain any kind of work at all. And so you're just kind of putting your life on hold.
Yeah.
And we did lose a few players for that who just went, you know, I'm a teacher, I need to work, I can't do it. And so, yeah, it was, I think, it was just for the sport and what we, you know, and for the pay, it just it was pretty difficult.
Sure. And that kind of became obvious after 2014. Like, that was the peak, and then it started to take its toll.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you missed it last week, we spoke to ex-German international Moritz Förster. Regular listeners will be familiar with that name, as he's been referred to by more than once as the best some of our guests have ever played against. And his interview is one of my favourites. Here's a look. I'm interested in this psychology degree that you did. At what stage is that something you've always been interested in, or is that something that sport kind of brought you in? Because it sounds like you're very interested in the mind side of sports and what goes on between your ears. Was that a motivation to study psychology?
Yeah, I love it. I always loved it, and I love thinking about it. Funny part about it is I don't really like it for me during sports. So I like thinking about it a lot, but I never. So we always had a psychologist with us during tournaments and also training camps. He was basically, we found a cool way to do it because he was just an offer for the players, so people could use him to talk to him and stuff.
Yeah,
but we didn't have those big sessions or whatever.
Yeah,
and many players used it. Which I think is really cool. But I never really wanted to use it. But I would have loved to be him myself. You know what I mean? So because I thought about it also so much, and I thought about the players and what I think how they can improve and what they should do differently and what I should do differently. So I thought about that a lot, and studying that was just basically trying to find proof for my thoughts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I gotcha.
So I always loved reading articles or also theories about things that I thought about also a lot, and then some of them were proven and some of them were completely different. So I loved the theory behind the ideas that I had for so long about psychology in sports, which I think is on the top level. Without exaggerating, I think it's at least 50% of the deal.
Yeah.
Because the difference between you guys in an Olympic Games tournament and us is just basically not there. We could play 10 times and it would probably end 5-5.
Yeah.
So it's only about that very day and how can you like beat the other team on that very day. And that is definitely, I mean, it's not possible without your skills in the sport that you play, but when it comes to those knockout games, it's I think it's even more than 50%.
More of that on episode 13 of The Help Side. Check it out. Now we head back to Anna. So what did 2015-16 look like?
Well,
because you went to Holland and that you were still like obviously pretty driven if you went to Holland. And
after 2014, I was like, this is where I'm going. We came second. I had a like probably my best tournament. And that was when I started to get all my sponsorships because it was on this world stage.
Yeah.
I'd worked really hard. I'd got a manager. I'd had him for 3 years, and we built relationships over those 3 years, like out of my own pocket, just creating relationships until something like that would happen where it was I played well, team did well, recognition, then that's when, you know, they know me, and that's how that came about. So I think it would take 3 years to get Nike and Red Bull.
Really? So you started that pretty soon after you entered the squad. You started just kind of building your relationships and after London, I got my first manager because there was things coming through left, right, and centre, opportunities, really. And it was, you know, it sounds really stupid, but I had
You know, I had long hair, I did all the ribbon and that stuff.
Yeah.
And I did that purely for marketing because I knew this is a short stint where we're going to get watched. I want to feel good, play good, look a certain way, and that's what I did. And so I got these opportunities, and that's not everyone's cup of tea, and especially in like a female team.
Yeah.
Not everyone likes that.
Yeah. But I mean, in a sport like hockey, it's, in bigger sports, rugby, netball, whatever, you have people actively coming to you to turn you into that, you know what I mean? Like when we're in an amateur sport or a semi-professional sport, the onus really is on you to do that. So you obviously had a pretty clear idea from early, like where did that come from?
I think I just knew what I wanted to, I guess, market myself towards. And it's especially it'd be younger players and young girls. Especially. Yeah. And so that's, you know, if I wanted to inspire, but at the same time, I want to get sponsored and paid so that I don't have to work, so I can do these crazy training hours. It started off, I think, it was London. I started getting stuff, all these opportunities, and I couldn't handle it. I can't say no. And a lot of people want free stuff. Yeah. So many people, especially from hockey, and you know, you just say yes to all these things, and then
as in fans or as in
people with businesses or any of that kind of stuff. They want you to do stuff for free. Yeah. And a lot of people say yes, and I'm someone who says yes, so I got someone to help me. In the end, that didn't go, like I wasn't really getting what I wanted from that relationship, so I changed to a manager in Sydney, and that's what I've encouraged so many of the girls who. Because a lot of people come to like, how do you market? How do I build my social media? How do I do this? And I said, I got a manager, and he would take 20%, which for any other sport is probably heaps. But for hockey, you're not going to get the opportunities anyway. Like he knew the people, and because it was Sydney based, it's hard to compete with AFL in Perth. And so I before London, I did photo shoots before London in like big dresses and stuff. So it's really different that so like would get picked up for marketing, that kind of stuff.
That was his idea.
That was my idea. I did that out of pocket. Like I paid like $1,500, flew to Canberra, you know. So it was all up. You know, I've just spent $2,000 on getting this material for when this happens. This will be there. Like I knew kind of I had to get content out there in different ways for people to look at you than just a sweaty hockey player on the hockey field.
For sure.
And, you know, and it's not about like sexualizing the sport, and I have done things like that as well, but it's all creating a different, I guess, image where you can get different kinds of fans on board, and then you go, look at my sport. This is what we do. Yeah. And so, I flew back to Sydney a couple of times to meet with Red Bull, to meet with Nike from my manager's introduction, and we would just go to lunch, have coffee, chat, and it took until 2014 for me to sign those contracts. So I put a lot of going back and forth and a lot of effort. It wasn't just like Red Bull came knocking on my door. Like that's not going to happen. It's like even Nike was just like, we don't do hockey. Yeah. And so it was like a lot of back and forth. And then once you're in, it's like they have these unreal opportunities you get to do. And they've got their own PR teams. So you do all the hard work, and then you go see them for one day, and they do all of the PR stuff. You just do all of these interviews, all these different things, and you've got months of content just out. And
you still manage your social media throughout all of this? Because I mean, you're following, you like definitely pin-up glamour girl of hockey in Australia. And to be fair, like you amass like a massive following for obviously yourself, but also the sport. I mean, not many hockey players can really, as you say, put the focus on their sport just by being a presence, and you definitely achieved that through exactly what you were saying. So it takes it's very smart. Very smart.
And it takes a lot of work, and it's hockey's it is a minority amateur sport. It doesn't just come to, especially in Australia. Like you look at Jamie Dwyer, mate, if he still has an unreal following, but I'm like, imagine if he was the best player in basketball. Like it would just be, he wouldn't have to go out and make his own stick brand and do all of that. It would just come to him, but he's actively going out and doing all these things. Like it does take a lot of work, and there's obviously you want your performance to talk you know, that's going to be the biggest thing. But I had time. So I'd finished, you know, studying whatever. And so social media was a new thing for me.
Yeah.
And I jumped on it because I had to do it with uni. So I jumped on it pretty early and realised that here's a platform to start sharing what we're doing. And I really enjoyed it. Now I'm like, oh, social media is so annoying. But for me, then it was a business.
Yeah. Okay.
And it still is.
Yeah.
Like, I still post things where, yeah, it is. You can get paid for it.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a weird one because it can be so great and so terrible. And it can be really authentic and so fake. But
that's it. That's your experience with it.
yeah, because now it wasn't, when I started, it was just sharing things behind the scenes, what we're doing. It wasn't getting paid to post stuff. Like this whole influencer thing, that wasn't a thing. So that's all only kind of the last couple of years. So it's probably more when I've finished hockey. But it was just a way to get people engaged and involved, and then working with the brands. Yeah. And because they've got big platforms, so trying to leverage their following to start following hockey.
Definitely.
And so but it was like a side gig, a side job, and that's why I got a manager, because if I did it all myself, it would have been like a full-time thing. And that's only on, like, you know, quite a small scale compared to a lot of other athletes. But that's like, I got questions being like, is that distracting, or is that... I didn't find it distracting. I found it because I like to be busy. So I like doing things. But for other people, it could definitely be. But for me, I didn't. Towards the end, like, I'm totally addicted to my phone now. So that'd be a different question. But, you know, the people ask about, how do I build this following? How do I market myself? But you have to be willing to put in the work and potentially getting out of pocket a bit to actually, leverage that. But I encourage people to get a website. I know someone who would love to do athletes' websites. Get a manager, because you don't have to pay them. It's only if they get you stuff. So there's no harm in it. And I think people are quite afraid to do it. And it's not everyone's cup of tea. Some people, they just want to play hockey and have fun, do their thing. But if you want to, you know, for me, I was like, I want to build this brand and make some money out of it. Then that was sort of the way I went down it. Yeah,
okay. You had an appearance on Top Gear. Like, I mean, I think that's probably the biggest thing outside of the Olympic Games. That's probably the most viewed involvement by any hockey player ever. How was that? Was that a manager thing as well?
Yeah. Yep. That was in Sydney, and it was so random because, like, I'm not a car person, so I would mention it, like, people would be watching. I'm like, oh yeah, I met him. And people were like, what? Because to me, I was like, cool. I didn't really realise that just how much people are, like, obsessed with Top Gear. But it was 30 seconds. Like, I raced James May in a car.
I saw it.
And
who won? He won.
They said I won, but he totally won. Yeah. So I had to do it like 3 times, because I think I did Perth show, and then I did 2 Sydney shows or something. Yeah, because it was a live show, wasn't it? Yeah, but I had to get there in Sydney. I had to be there in the morning at like 8. Flew in. I stayed at the Pullman Olympic Park. It was pretty nice. And we did a rehearsal, and they came in. They were so hungover. They were just like smoking like chimneys. I'm like, wow. And it was like 30 seconds rehearsal, and then I had to wait in the change room all day until like the show, and then it was like 30 seconds done.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you chat to them much? Well, not really. You were just there.
Just a little bit, but they were kind of like, who are you? They're just doing their thing. Because we were, obviously behind the arena and the change rooms and stuff. But I think they were pretty tired. I think it was like towards the end of their tour leg. It was cool though, and it was a good experience. And again, I got paid for it. It was just still about building that brand.
Sure.
So.
And how did you deal with the fame, I guess? Like, how did you deal with the fans, and what came along with the fame? Anything that you didn't expect that you had to deal with?
Yeah, it went from like 0 to 100 for me personally when after the Holland World Cup, there was because there was so many people watching in Holland. They just were nuts for it, and I went straight into playing Holland season. But I already knew I was playing before then. So there was so much hype that I was going to this club because I played well, we did well. And so I went and I stayed with a family. And
Is that PNK?
no, I did a mop near, it's like next to Den Bosch.
Wait, this is a club? Mop.
I don't know what it
Never
stands
heard of
for.
that.
I don't think they're in the first division anymore.
Okay.
I think they dropped out the year after I played. And the men are only in the second div.
Okay.
When I played, they usually came like middle of the pack because they had no national players.
Yep.
And when I went there, it was like the hype was all still there. So it was like there was media there. Like the postman knew who I was. I couldn't go anywhere.
Wow.
Really? And that without people knowing. And for me, like that doesn't happen in Australia.
No.
Being like, oh, are you that chick from hockey? Like, unless it does happen if they're like, oh, and you play hockey too? They're like, yeah, it's not just like some random, it's someone from hockey who recognises you. And so that was all, it was just like all these people who they may not be hockey people, but they'd obviously watched this World Cup. So that was weird. And I struggled with that. And like I had a sponsored car and it had like big stickers all over it. So everyone knew where I was the whole time. And I struggled with that, I think, being like the not having that anonymity, is that the word? Being to kind of like go out and do different things. It's like that wasn't something that I could really do, but probably learned that the hard way. So that was really different. And then
Didn't like that?
No, I didn't. I found that quite difficult. And even coming back to Perth, and because Perth, like everyone kind of knows everyone, it's like this big country town as well. It's, just having to be like more careful of just certain things I was doing. And I didn't really understand all of that and what that would look like. But that was when it was like, oh, okay, I've got to do the right thing here because like there are little girls looking up to us and you need to be a good role model. And I probably hadn't comprehended what that was really at the time, and what that impact was that you had on the younger generation. So that was something I really struggled with, I think, especially in Holland.
Yeah, okay, interesting. And then, so we move on from 2015 to 2016, and very established player in the team, already been to an Olympics, been to 2 Com Games, went to Glasgow at the end of 2014. How was 2016 for you?
Well, when I went to Holland, I got shin splints and I wasn't training much. I just played the games. So when I came back, I was super unfit. And that was middle of 2015. I still played World League. And I played alright-ish, but my training was super average. And at that stage, I was struggling mentally a lot coming back from Holland, trying to kind of find my way back in the team. Me being out had given other girls a chance. And I was really struggling. I probably should have then taken some time off, assess what was going on with myself in certain situations. But I really didn't. So I didn't get picked towards the end of 2015, and my fitness was just really shocking. And so that Christmas, I just busted my ass so that when I came back, I could get the top beat test score and be like, well, you have to beat me now, kind of thing. But even though I did that, I was still really struggling mentally. And they
just didn't want to be there, or one of those troughs where you're just flat? There's probably other things going on, and that I didn't really know what was happening for me. Sure. And so like the coaches would be meeting me each week being like, why are you so distant? Why aren't you, you used to be like head of the pack, now you're coming last, like what's going on? And I didn't really have any answers, but I'd go away on tour and I could still perform and play well, but then I'd come back and train and it'd just be like, I really struggled to be there, which I think having that such a long period of time, I probably just needed to just take some time out somewhere. And that's what I was saying before. I just couldn't
keep going. Like I wasn't mentally strong enough at that stage to keep going. And that's when sort of 2016 like fell to pieces for me. Like, you know, not getting picked in the Olympics, doing the wrong thing, having that couple of months was probably some of the hardest of my life. But then sort of going to Rio with yourself, which it was hard, but it was still a cool experience. You know, I was coming in a completely different view, I guess, this is your first experience of it. So I'm like, oh man, I totally could have been there, but I blew it. But like I got back into the team after that, and I worked really hard again, but I just wasn't ready. I needed some solid time out. And so when I did get dropped at the end of the year, as much as I didn't want it, it needed to happen. And so, you know, I was so angry at the coach and, you know, probably said all the wrong things, but in hindsight, like it was my actions that caused, and my playing and what was happening with what I was doing that caused me to be dropped. So I then, you know, I had the year in Sydney just playing with N-Swiss, and that just reinvigorated me playing with the young girls because they were just so fun. You know, I was like the grandma mum, the irresponsible
At,
mum.
25 or something.
Because, well, they're like 17, 18, and yeah, I was 25, and then I played 26 as well. And, you know, I think they were like, she's going to be so serious. Like, I'm not sure, whatever. I am always late. Like, I forget my shoes. I forget, like, I'm just, you know, not much of like the pin-up athlete, how you should come to training. And so I think they were just like, wow. And yeah, it was, I felt like I could give back and help. And in like, even in the last sort of 2 years, that's where I've kind of found my passion, is that, you know, I've just started studying again. I'm studying community service and drug and alcohol counselling.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's because being able and being through so much myself and able to share like what works, what didn't work, I found that was really fulfilling. And it's taken like a really long time after hockey to be like, I'm not fulfilled, like what am I doing? So even getting bits of that with N-Swiss, like I felt like I could make a real difference. Yeah. Even if it wasn't for me, I knew that I probably wasn't going to get picked again. Like I was in the development squad, but I think everyone else got a game, but I didn't. I was just like, just drop me again. And it was really nice to just be with like a group of girls who they still love the game. They're really fresh, and they were aiming for, you know, something that I had already done, and had a lot of questions and just about how they should go about things. And it was just, it was a really good experience. So as much as I thought, oh no, like I'm training with kids, but like they would kick my ass, so it was cool. There's so much talent here.
Did it kind of take a little bit of because I know 2012, 14, there was pressure, like you wanted to be the best in the world and you're, you know, working incredibly hard to achieve that. Was that still a focus after you'd been dropped, or was it a chance to kind of like just relax and enjoy your hockey and look at other things? Yeah,
it was, but then it got to AHL when I played for Canberra that year, and it was probably the best AHL I played. Yeah. And that was the feedback I'd gotten. And so when the call, I was like ready to pack my bags over to Perth kind of thing.
This is 2017?
Yeah. And so when the call came in like, oh, we'll put you in the development squad, I'm like, sorry, what? Like, no, did you see me? And they were like, well, yeah, but your team came 6. And so I played for New South the following year. And we won, but I played like dog shit. Like I was so bad. And so I was like, I'm going to stop now. Whereas I was so disappointed before because I actually thought I deserved it, or like even a game. Like I was going back and forth to Perth, basically training them up for Com Games, but never got a game for, even like in the crappy practice games, I was like, come on, give me one, then I can stop. But like I just still had that hope. But after I put everything into that tournament and I got my hopes up so much because I was really confident, and then to, I guess, go the not picked again, and going through that constant roller coaster. And then I just enjoyed it the last year. Like we won our club season. I've never won club, won HL, never won HL. And I was like, if I was a selector, I 100% wouldn't pick me. So, like, I'm okay to just do something else now.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
And you announced your retirement from international arena in 2019, started 2019?
Yeah, it's a weird one. Because they, so when did I retire? It's the end of 2018? Yeah, end of 2018. It was after the AHL. I just called Trini, and she knew.
Yeah.
I think she might have messaged me and been like, "Do you want to go for breakfast?" I was like, I know. We both know. It's time. Stop flocking a dead horse. But it wasn't until the following because I was playing. They were like, "Oh, we'll do it when you're playing for Canberra, like you're home." But the only reason you had to do it, like, I probably wouldn't have announced it or anything, was that you have to sign off from the drug testing pool.
Oh, really?
Because I was still on a SADA. They could have just come and knocked on my door, even though I'd been out of the squad.
Yeah.
Not that would happen.
Yeah, but it's possible.
But yeah, but I was like, I want to be eating all the protein that may have peptides or whatever in it. So I don't want to be like having to worry about that. That's why I had to like officially retire, because I was like, I haven't played for 3 years. This looks stupid. But yeah, they said, well, it just means you won't be off the testing pool. And I was like, nah, I want to be off that.
That's it for part A. Stay tuned for part B, where Anna opens up about her journey with mental health as an elite athlete, and we hear her thoughts as a marketing expert about where the sport of hockey should head, should we wish to achieve more exposure. See you soon.